The protests over police brutality against black
African
people is
Americans
helping
who
to
were
inspire
deprived
a
of
new
voting rights
wave
for
of black
centuries
civic engagement.
have not always taken that hard and right very seriously. At least not to the level that forced politicians to sit back, take notice, and be fearful of making it harder for them to vote. They never moved with such a cohesion that made politicians fear a backlash for restricting their voting rights.
After the Civil War, the U.S. passed amendments that constitutionally guaranteed the right for black men to participate and vote in elections. But Jim Crow laws, state and local laws that enforced racial segregation, were soon enacted across southern states to disenfranchise black voters. Black voters faced steep poll taxes, esoteric literacy tests, and voter purges. These measures effectively crushed the black vote. For instance, in a span of 8 years beginning in 1896, the number of registered black voters in Louisiana fell from 130,334 to just 1,342. It took decades to fight these oppressive measures, culminating in the Voting Rights Act of 1965, a law that prohibited racial discrimination in voting. However, new forms of voter suppression have replaced Jim Crow laws in some states. Gerrymandering, a political practice in which the boundaries of congressional districts are modified in highly partisan ways, has diluted voting power for people of color. Strict voting registration guidelines also make it difficult for people to sign up to vote. In 2013, a Supreme Court decision struck down a section of the Voting Rights Act, allowing states to enact discriminatory voter ID laws and voter purges. In Georgia, hundreds of polling stations in predominantly black and brown communities were closed ahead of the 2018 election, following a massive voter purge. While in Texas, new voter ID laws have made it more difficult for people of color and college students to vote.
But something happened this year, something profoundly meaningful has happened this year. The black American snapped. He snapped out of the box that many wanted to keep them inside. For the first time, as a racial group, African American community became the second largest community behind Hispanics. According to data from Pew Research Center, in 2020, there were 32 million Hispanic voters and 30 million African American voters. "You have always had my back, and I will have yours," Biden said during his victory speech. And he had every reason to say so. It was the African American voters who resurrected Biden's floundering chances in the Democratic primary and during the November 3rd election. Biden received anywhere between 80% to 93% of black voters across the country. Black voters may only account for 11% of the electorate, but when you win 9 out of 10 votes, that piles you up more than 20 million votes, a sizable boost that can propel any candidate closer to the presidency. Without the near 30% support Ossoff and Warnock gathered with African American voters in Georgia, the Senate would have remained under the GOP control for another 2 more years. I never really thought that nearly 4.4 million people would vote in the Senate runoffs and that 1.3 million plus will vote in the final election day. Pandemic be damned, told the African Americans. And for the voter suppression crowd, 2020 has sent them a clear warning. If a non-stop barrage against mail-in voting as fraudulent did not help, if the constant confusion about the status of USPS and its ability to deliver mail-in ballots on time did not stop people from voting by mail, if a pandemic that kept killing thousands of Americans every single day did not deter them from waiting in line for hours to vote, if they did not need a friendly door knocking to be reminded of the election, then what is going to stop them from doing it again? Once a voter has every chance to remain a voter, because the sweet taste of exercising their raw power is simply too much to resist, isn't it? The African Americans have not tasted victory once. They did it thrice in recent history. They installed Barack Obama twice, and now they have played a major role in installing Joe Biden, all the way from the Democratic nomination to the presidency. They have got confirmation in the Georgia race that they can change the state of the Senate too. This is getting too much, isn't it? I guess it should. It is just too much power in the hands of a small group of people. And African Americans understand the power of their vote and they are making their hands count. Georgia is not the end. It is the start of what we are going to see in the future. What happened on January 6th, the way the mobs were treated with kid gloves, is certainly not lost on them. They are galvanized, and we have seen the evidence of it twice in a span of 2 months. They have swept the keys of power, placed them all in a single bag, and handed them over to the Democrats. If the Democrats want to keep that bag, then they better do the right thing and start moving the country in the right direction. It's time the Democrats fight and give African Americans what they are asking for: equal treatment from forces that serve the government, from the capital of the country to the state capital. And if Democrats cannot give them that, then they will drop them exactly the place from where they were lifted from. And that's a pretty bad place to be in, isn't it? If you have any doubts, ask Mitch McConnell how he feels about being the minority leader in the Senate. Thanks for watching. If you like it, please subscribe.